All right, cheesers. So we're doing a different type of video. This is like a protocol cheese type thing. Multiple times trying to record this so far, trying to figure out the best way to do it. So during the Iowa race last night, there was some frustration. Overall, it was not a fun race for me personally, and I'll admit that. So if I was, annoying during the race while running it, I'm sorry for that. It was not the most fun race for me personally, but spectating wise, this was one of the most fun races to watch during the season. And I'm telling the truth about that because I was not looking forward to doing the VODs. I had such an annoying night with how my races went and certain situations that happened with different wrecks in those races that I was really not looking forward to doing the VODs. I did them and I genuinely had a really good time because, taking me out of it, it was a really good race. And the Moto 2 of this night was one of the craziest motos, not just on the season, but on the year. It was incredible. It really was. But there were some frustrations, and there is in these oval races, right? It happens. I think Indy and Milwaukee Mile were not too bad, but Little Texas obviously had a lot of frustration, and there's some here too. And I think some of it comes from a confusion on one of the rules that I would like to clear up, and I have two examples in Moto 1, although there are more examples of this throughout the night, and when you watch the VODs, you can look out for them. I know for a fact there are more examples of it, but I picked two from Moto 1 because I noticed it in Moto 1, and you'll even hear me mention it in the second example in the commentary, and that's why I'm making this video, because I noticed it in Moto 1, I noticed it throughout the night, I've noticed it in other races in this season, I've noticed it in Sunday races this year, I may have even noticed it in the Hog Woo race that we did way back, and there always seems to be confusion on this rule. I've explained how it should work multiple times, and no matter how many times I explain it, people seem to always revert to the way it used to be, and at a certain point, I'm just like, fuck, like, I've explained it so many times. I don't know how people keep going back to the original idea, so now I'm making a video on it. I'm going to give some visual examples. I'm going to go through the rules with everyone, and we're going to try to figure it out, and so everybody can help each other on being correct in this rule going forward, because multiple times there have been situations where I've seen a wreck, or I haven't seen a wreck and saw it afterwards, and I know that wreck should be a caution, but people will call it a different way because they think that the rule works a different way. And I want to clarify my stance on the rule, and this has been my stance on it the entire year. I want to clarify it so that it makes sense for everybody and we can all help each other out. Because again, there's been multiple situations where, I'll see the wreck and then, somebody I'm battling with next to me will be like, was that a caution? And I'm like, yes, there's two drivers involved. That's a caution. Sometimes there'll be other drivers that'll have a dispute about it. And I'll be like, okay, well, I'm curious. I'll look back in the theater. And then I'll look in the theater and I'll be like, oh yeah, that absolutely wasn't a caution. Or, oh shit, that should have been called a caution, and I'm pissed that I didn't see it because it absolutely was a caution. And I just didn't see it, so I wasn't able to help resolve that. So I'm just getting tired of those scenarios, and the best thing that I can do is make a video on it like this and maybe attach something to it in the Discord to try to clear it up. So let's go through it here. And let's start with, even though I have the video in the background, let's start with the rules. So I will link this in the video description. If it's not in the Indie Hog text channel, this was supposed to be shared alongside with the penalty chart. My bad if it wasn't. I thought it was. I thought that I did. If I didn't, because I was supposed to, I'm sorry. I literally thought I did. So if I didn't, my bad. I know the penalty chart got shared. This might not have. If it didn't, sorry. And it'll be in the description of this video. And again, if it wasn't, I'll get it in the Discord as well. So what I did is I made a rulebook 2023. The main reason I made this was just to help me work on the penalty chart, because the main focus, sorry, I need to hydrate. The main focus was to be on the penalty chart because the penalty chart is so visual, and I want people to refer to the penalty chart more often than not, because there's a lot of rules here. Like, let's be honest. All right, I will joke about people not reading stuff, but look at this. I know how people are, right? I know what generation we're in. I know what year it is. This is supposed to be a fun league. Most people have not read this, okay? That's just a fact. And I know that, right? I know that. So that's why I made the penalty chart, because the penalty chart is a lot easier on the eyes. It's a lot more visual. And it's nobody's fault for working on the rules or any work that we put in the rules. It's just how people are, right? It's not our fault for making the rule book. That's how it is. So again, that's why I did the penalty chart, and that's why I'm doing this video, to do it in a way that's more palatable and to help people out, because I know most people aren't going to read this. But anyways, I did this. If I didn't share it, my bad. This was mostly just for Indie Hog. I included some other stuff for other series for the future too, but mostly the last rulebook we did was a long time ago. I thought it needed a refresh, and it was mostly just for Indie Hog because that's what we're doing right now, and then maybe we could expand upon it. And it needs some updating. This was just supposed to be a start. But let's go through the important part of this video. So, cautions. So the caution rules. There are 4 different rules that constitute, or situations that constitute a caution, and there's been some big confusion over one of them, and that is what I would like to clarify in this video. So let's go through them. Number 1, a lag out or a black screen for a driver will bring out a caution. I think this one's fairly self-explanatory, and there's not a whole lot of gray area. The only situation where it got a little weird is when Camby lagged out late in Milwaukee Mile, but his hog disappeared, and it was already in that like range where if there was a caution, the race would have been over. But since his hog disappeared, we let the drivers drive it out because we didn't want to have that lag out affect the race. Since we couldn't get him back in, it would have been a caution anyway. Like, it was that one was a weird one to handle. So maybe we didn't handle that one properly. Maybe we could have handled it better. I don't know, but that was a weird one. Most of the time, lag out or black screen will hopefully happen earlier in the race, and we just call a caution for it, get that person back in. Or if they can't come back in, figure that out, get that communication, continue with the night. That happened in Iowa. That literally happened in Iowa. Number 2, a driver flying out of the track through some form of wreck. This almost happened in Iowa, but it ended up being number 4, and again, we'll get to that. A driver flying out of the track through some form of wreck. The only thing I really want to clarify here, obviously, if you go out of the bounds of the track, if you go out of the walls, it's a caution, right? We know that. Even if you can safely rejoin, because I know maybe this has happened with Coop. I feel like it happened with him or somebody, or maybe he made the call with somebody around him. I don't remember exactly what it was. Even if you can safely rejoin, if you fly out of the bounds, it doesn't matter. It should be a caution. So I just want to clarify that for number 2. Number 3, a single driver wreck where that driver is forced into a dismount. This one, I feel like I have to do the least clarification. I feel like people have a pretty good grasp of this one. I don't see much of an issue with this one. I think everybody understands this rule fairly well and have been calling it fairly well. So yeah, if a driver dismounts, it's a caution, even if it's a single car wreck. People have been pretty good about that one. Good job to everybody on that. Not much to say there. Number 4 is the contentious one that I want to clarify because it's caused a lot of issues, and I just don't want those issues going forward, and I want us to all be on the same page and help each other going forward, because the way that I have been looking at this rule the past year, I think makes a whole lot of sense. I think the way that we used to look at it does not make a whole lot of sense, and when I explain my perspective on it, I honestly think it's going to be really hard to disagree with me. And I'm not even being like arrogant. Like, I just think I have a pretty, I think I just have a pretty solid case here. So let me go through it. Number 4, any wreck involving 2 or more drivers. The wording on this is very specific. It does not say like any 2 drivers wrecking, right? It doesn't say that. Any 2 or more drivers wrecking. It says any wreck involving 2 or more drivers, right? If there is a wreck in an actual race in real life, like a NASCAR race, for example, or F1 or whatever, and a driver forces another driver into a wall or off the track, the driver that does that forcing is involved in the incident, right? Right. And because of that, wrecks that we have in these oval races where somebody forces somebody else in a 2 or 3 or 4 wide or however many situation into a wall, into a barrier, it should be considered a caution, because the way we used to do it in the past, frankly, does not make any sense to me. The way that we used to do this is what was if this wording was different, if it was like any 2 drivers wrecking. But I think the reason why I wanted the wording to be this way, and why I've been saying this whole year, like involving 2 or more drivers. The reason I've been saying it is because that old rule, and I we can't change anything about it now, really did not make sense, and it was super unfair to people, and it really encouraged you to wreck people. Because think about it. If you knew the race was strung out and there was just like, it was last lap or whatever, or not last lap, there's green, white, checker, bad example, but the race was strung out, let's say like 10 laps to go, and there's not many drivers around you and you're just battling with one other person. What's stopping you from putting the other person in the wall? Because we used to consider that one car, and people would just get away with it, and they would just get away. They'd be like, oh, sorry, I got loose. I got a little too high right there. My screen lag, sorry. And they knew that there wasn't, enough driver or a driver like close enough behind to where, like they would have time to react. They wouldn't hit them. So they knew they could get away with like doing that, like wrecking them, and it not being a caution. and just getting a position. And that was bullshit. That was bullshit. And also not just from like that perspective from being a cheeser. And I know like that has definitely happened in the past. We can go back, watch old races. That's absolutely, that situation's happened. But not just from a, that's bullshit and unfair to the person that gets walled perspective, but also just from a logical perspective. Any wreck involving 2 or more drivers. I do not understand why one driver forcing another driver into a wall is not considered 2 or more drivers involved in a wreck. I do not understand why a 3-wide situation, the driver on the inside and the middle going too high or getting loose and catching it and getting into the driver on the outside and then forcing them into the wall. I don't know why that's not considered a 2 or more driver incident, because the way that this is written and the way that it works in any real life racing series, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. Like if you just think about it logically, like it just does not make sense why those would be considered. Like, why did the person get in the wall? Like if you'd say, oh, well, it's one that's what I would ask you. Why did the person get in the wall? Were they on their own? Were they on their own and they just, did they just get too far to the right? Did they just get loose in the exit of the turn? No. Sometimes that happens, but the vast majority of the time, somebody's getting forced into the wall through some bad driving from the drivers on the inside. That is what's happening. And if that happens, not calling it 2 or more involved is just illogical. It doesn't make sense. And it's also super unfair to the driver that gets walled. It's super unfair. And it's always been really unfair. And that's the reason why I've been trying to change this and evolve this year, because it's bullshit and it's not how it should work. So that's why I've been trying to say it, and why I know I've said it multiple times. I know I've brought it up in VODs. I know I've said it looking back at certain cautions before. I know I've done it mid-race. I know for a fact that I have multiple times, but maybe I haven't been clear enough, and that's why I'm making this. And that's partially my fault. Absolutely. I should be more clear. I probably should have made this video. This has been a problem. I'm even saying this has been a problem throughout the year in oval races. I should have made this video a long time ago. So my bad. But this has been what I've been saying. I know for a fact this is what I've been saying and using the entire year, the wordage, any wreck involving 2 or more. I know I've been saying that, and that is what it has been. Maybe it wasn't this 3 years ago, but that's what it's been now. So let's finally get to the video examples. I think I've beaten that horse enough. You get my point. Those types of wrecks should be, from a logical standpoint and from a fairness standpoint and the wording of the rule standpoint, should be a caution. And not everybody sees that the same way. And again, a lot of those people, not all of them, some of them probably have and maybe just interpret it a different way, but a lot of those people probably haven't read the rule or haven't been updated on it. Elite probably doesn't know it. He hasn't raced in fucking months. So I'm just trying to get this out here. So I have 2 examples from Moto 1. Let's go through them. I'm sorry this video is so long, but this has just been a problem in oval racing, and I know if I clarify this, I'm pretty confident it will make things better. It's not going to fix the issues that we've had, but it's something that'll make things better. So let's go through this first example as well. It's going to be a gritty race. Once people catch on to that, little bit of wall contact. Oh, he's over. He's over. Elite and Hunter battling it out. So Elite dismounts. Well, Elite dismounts in this one. Race. But the reason why I want to use this as an example is I want to paint a picture here. Whether it's intentional or not, Hunter gets Elite in the wall here, right? We can all agree upon that. I'm not trying to call you out, Hunter, but whether intentional or not, Hunter gets Elite in the wall right here, right? That is what happens. Why? Explain to me why this should not be 2 or more drivers involved in a wreck. Hunter forcing Elite a little too high and getting him in the wall is what causes the crash. Therefore, you have Hunter and Elite in the crash that is 2 drivers. Now, again, I know Elite dismounts. I know Elite ends up dismounting, and I know Slaunch ends up making slight contact. So I know this isn't a perfect example. The second example I give is better. But I'm just trying to say, imagine that crash that we just watched. Imagine that crash. What you have to do on this track is make a slide job. If Elite didn't dismount and Slaunch wasn't there, that's the picture I'm trying to paint, because it's still a really good crash. No dismount, Slaunch not behind them. Just imagine that crash. I would have called that a caution. Not everybody would agree, but I think going forward, and I've been trying to say this that should be a caution. Pretty dirty as well. It's going to be a gritty race once people catch on to that. So yeah, if there was no dismount, if Slaunch wasn't there, that would have been a caution. Now, because I have to clarify that, because that one was like a legitimate caution for multiple other reasons, it's not the best example. That's true. So let's go later in the race. Again, he's gonna where I have a much better example. That was like a okay, this will help you visualize it. The second one is like a legit, just perfect example. Right? Okay, so it's coming up here. New rules. Shout out. Oh, right here. Right? No, not okay. What happened? Right here. Oh. So Camby forcing Coop into the wall and Coop getting into a full spin. A lot of people will not say, or in past races have not like called this a caution. This should be a caution because it's super unfair to Coop. And I'm going to let, before I talk more about it, I'm going to show it again. I'm going to let myself in the commentary because you can tell this is where I started thinking about making this video. So I'm going to let myself in the commentary talk about it first. Right? No, not okay. What happened? Oh, it's Camby and Coop. And Camby gets Coop in the wall a little bit. Now, with the new rules, shout out Dua, that should be a caution, but I don't think they'll call that because I think most people are probably not used to it at this point. That should be a caution in this season. I'm not sure if they'll call that, and I'm going to be honest. And I say new rules, but truthfully, the reason I said that is because I wrote that stuff out for this season and partially through the season. Like we had the actual new rules, but I don't know if I specifically wrote that one out. But this has been a problem in previous races, right? Is the fact that we're still like going off that old rule book. It's still kind of like, you know, we didn't have everything fully explicitly stated. But I know that I've been saying throughout the entire year, I've been saying 2 or more drivers involved. Yes, even in that type of wreck, it should be a caution. I know I'd have to go back and dig up the archives if you really want me to. I can go look. There have been multiple wrecks like that one that we just watched where it was not called, or it was called generally by me. And I've been like saying in the videos, like, that should be a caution. Okay, guys, I know not everybody's up to date, but like this should be a caution. Like going for this needs to be a caution. This makes sense. Trust me, this is how it should be. It's not fair to the person getting wrecked. And I've been trying to get that point across, and I haven't done a good enough job of it. And that is why I'm making the video here. I don't remember if it got called or not. So I guess we'll find out. It was not. I'm pretty sure. Find out with everybody because I genuinely don't remember. I'm pretty sure this. Yeah, this race just plays out. This race just plays out. Not. So that's a little bit of a. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna cook either of them for that. That's a newer one on this season where if a driver puts another driver in the wall, like what just happened right there, I think, and I say that because I wrote it in that rule book and I wrote it that way. That's why I say newer for this season. Realistically, again, I know I've been saying it the entire year, but I just like wrote it in for this season. It's very logical and I've been trying to make those calls in the races according to that. To consider that 2 involved because one driver's putting another driver in the wall. Exactly. So that should have been a caution. Exactly. But those new rules, I see that still not get called sometimes. So I'll call it out here in the video. Just a good example right there that should be a caution. I know it's still hard because it used to not be one and people aren't used to it. But for future reference, I think I even have one this race that I should have called. Where I think it was in Moto 2. I didn't call it, so I make the mistake too. Or I think it was in Moto 3. I had a bad slide job. I got Coop in the wall, and I said sorry. I should have called it a caution as well. So I'm not saying that I'm like that should be a caution too. So it's all good, So you can look out for that one in that race. That was my bad on that one too. But here we go to the end of the race, and that was a case, as well, like where it was it was a harder one to call because it was a slide job, and the slide job cheeses are a little hard because like if somebody does a slide job and it like slows somebody up, that's not a wreck. But if I'm pretty sure mine got him in the wall and wrecked him a little bit. And that's why it was hard for me to make that call because I was the one making the slide job. He wasn't even on my screen at that point, even though I was cheesing him. So it was hard for me to tell the severity of what I did in that situation. Soul takes the win. And that's why everybody needs to be on the same page right there, because you can't always tell with the screen lag. Like in that slide job situation, looking back on it, I'll have to review it again, but I'm pretty sure that one should have been a caution as well. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I'm remembering, but either way, I couldn't tell exactly whether it was supposed to be a caution or not because, again, with the screen lag, like I was the one in front, I couldn't tell if it like fully wrecked them or not, or how bad it was. Them for that. That's a new. So let's go back and watch it one more time before we close out this video. Right? No, not okay. What happened? Oh, okay. So Camby Let's go through it again. Right? So Camby and Coop, when they come down the backstretch here, they're racing side by side. And Camby, it's up to Camby. Coop's on the outside. He's as close to the wall as possible. Coop can't give Camby any more room than he already has. It's on Camby to give Coop some room here. Okay, what happened? Oh. And it's hard to see, but I'm pretty confident. And maybe it's a little bit easier to see in the VOD and not just my actual replay, but Camby's like just drifting up ever so slightly. It's what gets Coop in the wall, and he ends up getting in the wall and like fully wrecking in the wall. And again, people in the past would say that and be like, well, Coop wrecked. Coop didn't wreck. It's 2 or more involved. It's a caution because Coop got wrecked. He did not wreck. He got wrecked. We need to change the wording. Like, we need to call this how it is and start calling it how it is and get everybody on the same page, because I think this makes sense. I think it's more fair. And I think we need to all get on the same page with it. And you know what? Bonus example. This is off the script. I'm going fucking rogue. But I'm giving you guys another example from Moto 3. That is a great example, because I just thought of it. And it is a phenomenal example. So I know the video is going a little bit longer, but I'm trying to give you the best I can here. Okay, so let's load up Moto 3. So right away, I'll say this is another one where it's not... The reason why this one wasn't called a caution is because it was the last lap. It was the race to the line anyways. You know, even if it was a caution, it was race to the line anyways. So I just want to say that. That's the reason why this one wasn't called a caution. But if it weren't the last lap, it should have been a caution. So let me just say that right away. So let's find it. Sorry that I have to find it. Get the inside and look at this. It's not that hard to find because I watched so many replays. Sexy racecraft. Okay. Let's get away from that. I don't. Imagine he would do, like, let's mute the commentary. I was trolling in this one. Let's mute the commentary. All right. I was having some fun with this one. Okay, so this wreck right here. So let me paint the picture. This is the last lap. So again, like that other example with what was the first example that I showed? Who was it with? Hunter and Elite. How that one was a caution anyways because there was also a dismount and stuff. This one, I just want to say the reason why this one wasn't called a caution, again, it was the last lap. So we're on the white flag. It was the last lap. It would have been race to the line anyways. That's why this was not called a caution. It was the end of the race anyways. We were on that last lap battle. I'm just trying to give an example here of a wreck that this should have been called a caution if it were any previous lap in the race. So let's go what happens here, or go through what happens here. So right here, you have me on the very inside, Elite in the middle, and Soul on the outside. And we're battling. It's the last lap. We're all going for position. Elite and I are on each other. And Elite and I think both, and you can see it in the theater, maybe not quite right there, but soon I think Elite and I right around here think we're clear, but we're not with the screen lag. We're definitely not clear. And so because we think we're clear, Elite and I both start going up. And it could even be more on me. Either way, whichever driver you want to call it more on, either way. Both of us, or just me, or even him, whatever, I don't care. Either way, there was a fuck up here. We went too far outside. Again, in the theater, it looks clear, but we clearly weren't. And that got Soul in the wall. And that wrecks Soul. And we'll see that here. So we got Soul in the wall, and he gets cheesed into the wall. And again, like there was the contact there too. But even just Soul getting stuck in the wall like that should have been a caution, because Soul didn't just drive into the wall. He didn't just drive into the wall. He was forced into the wall. I know it doesn't look like it, but I promise you, with this theater screen lag, I promise you, he was forced. It was not, we were not clear like it looks in the video. I promise you, he was forced. And again, like calling it single car would be fair if he was on his own and just got too high and went into the wall. That would be fair. That would be fair to call that single wide, but that's not what happened. Elite and I, whichever one of us it more was, or if it was both of us, whatever it is, we started to drift up, and that got Soul into the wall. That's on us. We were involved. And again, whether it was one of us or more of us, it doesn't matter, because we're both we're both involved, right? So even just disregarding the penalty standpoint, that doesn't matter. Just from calling a caution standpoint, we were both involved because we were both on his inside, and the force up ended up happening, and Soul gets in the wall, gets wrecked into the wall, I should say. Soul gets wrecked into the wall, and under any other circumstance where it wasn't the last lap, that right there should be a caution. That right there should be a caution. So I hope those examples help. There are plenty of other examples of that type of wreck happening in the video. There's plenty of other examples of that happening, being called or not being called throughout the whole season. And I'm just over it. And it was part of the frustration, more so in the race review, because I didn't realize how many situations there were like that. Like, obviously, I was firsthand for that last one. I didn't see the 2 from the first moto, so I didn't realize how bad it was. And I hate, it's happened multiple times this season. I hate going back through the replay and seeing crashes like that and thinking like, fuck, if I saw that, I would have called that. And knowing it should be called. But I can't see everything. And I want everybody to be on the same page and to understand it better, that that is what the rule is. That is what the rule is. That is what the wording is. And that's what I think is fair. And that's how I think it should be going forward. And it's what I think makes sense. And that's how we should call it. We should all be on the same page with it. And that's how we should call it going forward. Because if we do, I think that these oval races will be it's not going to fix everything, but I think it's something that'll help the frustration in these oval races. Because in this race, a lot of these wrecks fucked people over and did not result in cautions. And if they at least resulted in a caution, it at least would have given them a chance to regain. So yeah. So yeah, there you go. That's the whole spiel. I'm sorry it went on so long, but again, it's not just this race. It has been multiple times this season. Go back and watch the oval VODs. Go back and watch the oval VODs. If you're bored, or go listen to them, I would bet money on it. I bring it up in at least one of those other VODs, probably multiple of them, a caution where I'm like, hey, that should have been a caution. If I would have saw that, that would have been a caution. Like, this should be 2 involved. Let's go through. Like, I know I've done it before in this season. I know I've done it before. And I just wanted to finally specifically make a video on it because I'm tired of reiterating and reiterating. I need to make it as clear as possible, wording wise here. And I'll say stuff in the Discord too. And I gave visual examples, and that's all that I can do. So I hope that helps. And if there's any questions on it, I would be happy to answer those. So feel free. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. 2 more races in November before we get a week off. I think we could all use that week off. Iowa, even if it was frustrating for some people, I know a lot of people actually really enjoyed it from what I saw. Watch the videos. It was one of the best races spectating-wise. It was fun. And I had fun with it too. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you next time.